we discuss worksheet tools, we're going to go over a number of the various tools available in the worksheet mode so you can understand how you can use them so you can add further information to your working drawings. Once we finish the formal part of the presentation, I'll open up the chat panel where you can type in any questions that you might have about the worksheet tools. And following the entire presentation, I'll email you out a booklet where you can read about all the various tools that we did cover in today's class. So let's get started talking about worksheet tools. So you can see on my screen that I have a worksheet already created and a view already inserted. In previous classes, we've discussed how to insert and define a smart view. So I've defined a few of the smart views onto various sheets. Now what I want to do is use the tools to add further information. So I'm going to zoom in on our floor plan, and I'm going to be adding some text. So I'm just going to bring myself in and around this area right here, zooming it nice and large on the screen so you'll be able to see it a little bit better. I'm going to go up to the Tools pull-down menu, and under the Tools pull-down menu, you'll see text. We have text and text with a leader. All of these various tools are also found under the Tools tab. Once you begin to recognize the icons used for each tool, you can pull them right directly off of these different tabs as well. And you'll recognize that all of the different icons beside the pull-downs are the same under the tabs as well. When we use the text tool, it'll put text directly on our plan for us. In the right-hand side of this dialog box are predefined labels, strings of text that we've typed up previously for you to help save you some time so you don't have to retype them every time you do a model. So I'm going to, first of all, change my text size to be labels, so a nice big text size. And then I'm going to move my cursor over to these predefined labels and double-click on the word kitchen. When I double-click on that piece of text, it adds itself into my text window. Here it's added in, it's ready to be inserted. I could further add some more text if I wanted to, or delete out part of that text. It simply adds it quickly for me. Before I click OK, I'm also going to select this multiple text insert option. I'm going to put a check mark in that box. What this allows me to do, when I click OK and insert the word kitchen, if I didn't have multiple text insert selected, the command would be done. And if I wanted text again, I'd have to pick on the text icon. So this handy multiple text insert, when I'm inserting multiple strings of text throughout my plan, it'll automatically bring up the same dialog box again, so I don't have to go back and click on the text tool. So let me show you how that's going to work. I'm going to put the check mark in multiple text insert and click OK, and I'm going to put the word kitchen in the kitchen. And as soon as I do that, see the text dialog box pops right back up again. And then from there, I can double-click on different words, click OK, and insert that text. When I'm inserting text, I like to use the crosshairs to make sure that I'm lining it up with other text that's already in the model. So they're nicely in line and allows me to ensure that they're nice lined up and it's nice and clean on my drawing space. So I would continue through my model inserting different strings of text, or I can type in text as well. When I know it's my last string of text, I'm going to uncheck multiple text insert and simply click OK. Now that string of text will attach itself to my cursor, and when I left-click to insert it, the command is done. The dialog box doesn't pop up again. So that's a quick and handy way of inserting text into your model. Besides the text tool, we also have text with a leader. When I choose this tool, the exact same dialog box pops up. I can type in any text that I want, so I'm going to type in wall construction and say 2x4 stud. Just a nice short note. I'm going to underline wall construction. So I'm highlighting wall construction and I'm hitting underline. So you can use the underline or italic or bold to add style to your text as well. I'm not going to do multiple text insert, but this time when I click OK, notice that there's no text attached to my cursor. Because I chose text with a leader, it wants me to first show it where the leader is to reside. So I'm going to point to the wall, left click, move my cursor it's a 2-point arrow. So at this point, if I wanted to turn ortho off so I could come up on an angle and then turn ortho back on so I'm coming straight across, I can do so. Or I could have picked both points right in line to have one straight leader. So text puts in our text wherever we want it to go, and text with a leader first allows us to draw a leader so that we're pointing to where we want the text to go. Two different types of text. Also under our Tools pull-down menu, we have dimensions. So if there's any dimensions that I want to add in here, while I'm in my worksheet, I can add those further dimensions as well. I could come up to Tools, Dimensions, and I'm going to choose Linear Dimension. And I'm going to grab a dimension from this wall in my kitchen, left-click, all the way up to this wall in my kitchen, left-click. And it'll show me that dimension, where I want it placed, and I'm going to left-click to place it right there. I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer so you can see all of this nice and big on the screen. So now I've inserted dimension using Tools, Dimensions, Linear Dimension. I picked the first corner of where I wanted that dimension to start and the last corner by left-clicking where I wanted it to start. And then I move my cursor out and left-click again to show where I wanted the dimension line. Now that the dimension line is there, I can do a number of things with it. I'm going to split the dimension. So Tools, Dimensions, Split Dimension. I left-click on the dimension that I want to split, and then I'll show it where I want it to split. So if I wanted to split it by clicking right here on the end of my island, left-click, it would dimension to that island. And then I can select that dimension again, this upper one, left-click on it, Tools, Dimension, Split Dimension again, and again, I'm going to choose on the other side of the island, left-click, and it gives me those dimensions. So once a dimension is in, you have the opportunity to split it apart. Or if I wanted to join them back together again, Tools, Dimensions, and this time I'm going to join the dimensions. I want to join these two dimensions. So I left-click on both of them, it joins them back together for me. So once you've inserted dimensions, by going up to the Dimensions tool, you can again change them around if you need to add further tools and text to your set of plans. I'm also going to go to the Draw pull-down menu now. And here I want to add in some further information as well. I'm going to zoom in on our ensuite off the bedroom here. And I want to show that there's insulation coming along these walls. I don't want to insulate the whole wall, but I just want to insert little pieces of it. So under our Draw pull-down, we also have this very last tool. It's called Details, and allows me to add details to my plan as well. So here I can go to Bad Insulation. So I left-click where I want the bad insulation to start at the top of this wall, left-click. Bring my cursor down to maybe the end point of that wall, left-click, and then show how wide I want that insulation to be, left-click, and it puts the insulation in. I don't have to start and stop its exact points. If I pick that tool again, I could pick in the middle of the wall, left-click, come down as far as I want to show it in its length, left-click, and then again show its width, left-click. So I can just give it the appearance of the insulation in the wall so we understand that we have the insulation in that wall. And then if I went back to our Tools option and went to Text with a Leader, that's where I can say a wall construction again, 2x4 wall, complete with insole. Just a simple note. Again, I'll take advantage of highlighting this text and hitting underline. Click OK, and then I'll just point to the wall, left-click, and I'm going to keep it all in one line, left-click, so everything's together. There's our text pointing to the wall, pointing to that insulation that I drew. And again, the insulation is found under our Draw tab. It's the very last tool called Details, and there you'll see rigid insulation, bad insulation. We can do wood sections and masonry sections as well. I'm going to zoom back out so we can see our entire floor plan. And now I'm going to flip to another sheet, sheet 2, where I've inserted elevations, sections and a detail where we can further add information using our draw tools as well. I'm going to zoom in on that front elevation. I brought the elevation in without any hatching. I only want to hatch this one particular area of our plan, and when I have it hatched, the rest I want to leave as plain. So imagine this was even a remodel plan. I want to add the hatching to the one area to profile it, to make sure that it's nice and relevant on the page, so we know that that is our new remodel area and the rest is existing. So zooming in on that portion of those walls, I'm going to zoom in nice and close. We're going to add some hatch. There's multiple ways to add hatch in our software, Polygon Hatch and Boundary Hatch. First, I'll profile our Boundary Hatch tool. When I pick on the Boundary Hatch tool, it first wants to know what pattern I want to use. It'll show you the style, name, and then a preview. By left-clicking on that preview, it'll bring you up a list of different patterns that can be used. So I can choose a pattern. I'll choose this brick pattern, and it'll show me the preview of the brick. On the right-hand side, it wants you to define where you want the hatch to be shown. It wants you to create a boundary. And there's two ways you can create a boundary. The boundary can detect inner boundaries and go around them. We want to detect the inner boundaries of our windows and not hatch inside of those. So we would use this detection of outer boundary. Or we can tell it to ignore it and hatch right through the window area as well. So either way that works best for the plan that you're working on. I'm going to make sure that mine is set to outer, so the little dot is an outer, and then I hit on this little button beside Select Boundaries. That takes me back out onto my front elevation. As I move my cursor around, notice how it highlights areas in green. It recognizes the boundaries that are around it, and it'll highlight them for you so you can see the boundaries it's creating. When you see the boundary that you like highlighted in green, you simply left-click. That'll solidify that green outline, and it'll show you the boundary it's created. When you're done, you right-click and hit Enter. You're back in the Boundary Hatch dialog box. You can get a preview of the hatch pattern in that detected area by hitting Preview down at the bottom. If you like the preview, you right-click and hit Finish. If you wanted to change some of the settings, you could choose Cancel, and that dialog box will pop back up again. I'm going to choose Finish, and it's applied the hatch pattern for me. So now I can see that one area of my elevation nicely hatched. I also want to hatch the roof area above that to show that it's new construction as well. For that, I'll use our Polygon Hatch tool. I don't want to hatch the entire roof. I just want to give them the idea that there's shingles up there. So by using this Polygon Hatch tool, it'll allow me to trace out a polygon shape onto my model, and it will just hatch that particular area. When it's hatching and creating that polygon, so when I go out, and I'll just draw it as an example, I'm going to be picking points to create the polygon. When I'm creating those points, it can connect those points with a boundary line. So I can see the line of the area where I'm applying the hatch. And then within that area, it will put its hatch pattern all through that area. If I don't want the outer line around it, then I can uncheck that I don't want the boundary line, I just want the hatch pattern. And then with the Select button, I can go in and choose the pattern that I want. So I'm going to be using some shingles. So I'm going to scroll down until I see roof shingles, or I could use wooden shakes, either one. I'll use roof shingles, click OK. Now it knows the pattern that I want to use. It knows I don't want to use a boundary line. And then when I click OK, it'll allow me to define those points. I left click, and I'm going to turn off ortho because I want it to have a nice different shape. I don't want it to be too rectangular. And I left click. See the shape it's created? When I right click and tell it I'm finished, it'll just put the hatch in that particular area. You'll see it didn't include the outline. It just included the hatch pattern for us. So that's hatch We have Polygon Hatch, and we also have Boundary Hatch. Either one will allow you to illustrate further your design. Also on your elevations, you can take advantage of the tools, dimensions, linear dimension tool again. I'm going to put a dimension, left-click on the bottom edge of our footing, left-click, move my cursor up to the top of the roof edge, left-click, so it knows I want a distance between those 2 points. A dimension attaches itself to my cursor, and I simply left-click where I want it to place itself on my sheet. Now that I have it in there, I can left-click on it, Tools, Dimensions, split that dimension. I'm going to split it at grade. So now I have bottom of footing to grade, from grade all the way up to the roof. And from there I could split it if I wanted to bring myself to the floor level or to the top of my windows. I could again keep splitting that dimension as we learned in our floor plan view. So there's some further tools that you can use as well. I'm going to zoom in on another portion of our elevation and use some different tools. We've learned how to use the bad insulation tool. We've learned how to use our Polygon Hatch and our Boundary Hatch. The next tool that we have is our Revision Cloud tool. So we would use this if we're updating the set of drawings and we've made a change and we want to draw the attention to that change. So I pick on the Revision Cloud tool, and then with my cursor, as I left-click, it's going to start drawing a revision cloud. And then when it meets up at the last point, we have our revision cloud. I could go up to Tools, Text, Text, and I'm just going to type in REV1, Revision 1, click OK, and put it right by that revision cloud. Then corresponding to that, over in my title block, where I have revisions, I could say Revision 1 with Tools, Text, Text. Revision 1, I'm going to say Multiple Text Insert. What is the revision? Update Windows. Click OK, and put that text in. So that will correspond to my revision cloud, the revisions in the title block. Lots of tools to help you add further information to the views that you've created from your model and inserted onto your working drawing sheets. Now I'm going to zoom in on our section through the house, and in here I can use those same tools. If I wanted to add in the dimensions, Tools, Dimensions, Linear Dimension, that'll allow me to pick from, again, our bottom of footing, and then I could pick to the top of the foundation wall, put the dimension. I just have the 1. Now I'm going to show you a new tool, Tools, Dimensions, Continuous Dimension. It recognizes that I want to, first of all, down in the lower left-hand corner, pick the linear or line dimension you want to continue from. I pick this one. It says, OK, I'm going to start my dimension right from that point. See how it's already drawing a dimension? So from there, I can pick to the top of my doors, or I could pick to the top of my roof again. Right-click and tell it I'm finished. So if I put in 1 dimension, I can then go up to Tools, Dimensions, Continuous Dimension, and allow those to come from that original point all the way up to keep going with my dimensions. Another great tool to use for your dimensions. I'm going to zoom in closer to my footing, and I'm going to add further detail to my footing. With my footing, maybe I want to show some hatch just in this footing area. That's where I can use our Boundary Hatch tool, come into our preview, and go down to Concrete. So it's got that concrete pattern. Select my boundary, put my cursor inside that footing. See how it all becomes dashed? It's seeing that area. Left-click. It highlights it all green to let me know it's selected. Right-click, hit Enter. Get a little preview of that. I see the hatch pattern. It looks rather large. I'd like it to be a little denser than that. So I'm going to right-click and hit Cancel. And I'm going to change the scale of that pattern. See the scale area here to the left where I'm moving my cursor. I'm going to scale that down to be about 0.5. And then let's see a preview. Now it's a little bit denser. I like that better. I right-click and hit Finish. So if you're not happy with a hatch pattern, remember to hit Cancel, change some of the settings, maybe change the pattern scale, and then you can move on. Okay? Back down there with our footing, I want to show that there's a drain tile beside it. I didn't draw a tile in our model, so now I have to illustrate it here on my section. To do that, we can take advantage of these draw tools that we have. The circle tool. So the circle tool can be from the center. My first point would be the center, and then I'm pulling out to show the radius, or I'm showing 2 points. So I'm going to use the 2-point method. I'm going to put my cursor right up against the footing, left-click, pull my cursor to the left, and show it the radius of that circle, left-click again. There's my drain tile. If I wanted to show the area that we're going to be backfilling, I can use my line tool. Clicking on the line tool, I can left-click at the bottom edge of the footing, pull my cursor over, maybe I'll turn ortho back on, pull my cursor to the left, turn my ortho back off, and I'm going to pull up. I'm going to zoom back out and pull itself up until I hit that area, and then hit ortho again to come across. Right-click, tell it I'm finished. So that was just using our line tool to, again, add further detail. Now, in that area that I drew, if I wanted to show a hatch pattern in this area, or I wanted to show some backfill in here, but I didn't necessarily want it to go through the circle, but I wanted to go all the way around it, I'm going to draw a temporary line. Left-click, right-click, finish. Now I've got this line that will create a boundary in that same area. So I can go up and use our boundary or Polygon Hatch tool. I can come in and find a hatch pattern that I want to use, maybe some dots in that area, or we can do some rock, just some different earth sections. I'll use dots for now. And I can click OK. And then I'm going to select my boundary in this area right here where I'm moving my circle. Right-click and cancel if I'm not happy with the scale. I can scale that back up again, maybe to 1, or I can scale it back down again with those dots because they're very far apart. Select my boundary again. Right-click, enter, and hit cancel there and put in my hatch pattern. Another way of doing that again would be my Polygon Hatch with the dots. I don't want to include the boundary area. Click OK, left-click, 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 and just show it a scattering of where you want this to be. I'm going to turn my ortho off so I can get in and around that area. Right-click, finish, and it'll put the dots in for you as well. So lots of different means of putting in the hatch patterns. Either way is fine to put those in, and you can use either method. Okay? Next on, I'm going to zoom back out, and I'm going to come over to the side here where I've blown up a detail of that same footing. So in this blown up detail, I want to do a couple of things. One, I want to add some further detail. I want to show that there's stud wall coming through, so I might put a cross section in there, some bad insulation, some rigid insulation underneath the concrete slab that we have. And then I want to point it to look towards the original footing so that it's got a blown up detail looking at it. So to start with, I'm going to come over to our details, and I'm going to go to wood section. It's asking me to pick my first point, and that's where I'm going to put it on the bottom at the top edge of that slab. And then I'm going to come through my next point over. See how I can type in distances as well? So if I know the exact distance that I wanted to come over, I could type that, left click, and then I'm going to pull my cursor up. And then it's drawn in the little wood section. I can use my line tool from there, left click, to show that it's coming up to this point right here. Now I can use my bad insulation tool, left click at the bottom edge of that wall, left click at the top edge of that wall, left click to show the thickness of the insulation. I'm going to do the same with my rigid insulation. Choose the rigid insulation tool. Left click where I want it to start, left click to show the length of it, and then left click to show the width of it. And again, you can watch those on-screen dimensions at the bottom to further illustrate that. Now, what if I didn't want these extra lines? When I cut that detail and inserted this section, it included some extra lines that I'm not happy with that I might want to remove. So what I can do is I can edit this definition of this block. I'm going to draw your eyes to the right-hand side of the screen. I've left-clicked to select this block, and now I'm going to choose Edit Definition. Now, each of these lines are individual lines. So from here, if I want to trim any back or delete any out, I can do so. I'm going to left-click to select this line, and I'm going to hit the Delete key on my keyboard. Left-click to select this line, hit the Delete key on my keyboard. So I can delete out any lines that I don't want. If I want to move a line back, I can left-click to select it. See the dots, one on each edge of the line itself and one in the middle. If I put my cursor on one of those dots and hold down my left mouse button and move it back, I can draw those lines back. So again, left-click to select the line, move your cursor to the end point of that line, hold down the left mouse button, and draw it back. Left-click, put your cursor over the dot, hold down the left mouse button, draw it back. Okay? And that's how you can edit that definition of that block. When you're done editing it, you simply hit Escape. And it will take you back to look at that block itself. So now everything's attached again, except the original work that we attached to afterwards. And for this hatching as an example, I can do the same thing, hold back and draw back to create those. Now I have that block. Tools, text, I can add text. But what I'm going to do is I want to draw some circles to illustrate that this block is a blown up detail of this area right here. So I would grab the circle tool, and I'm going to do the circle center radius. So I'm going to put my cursor in the center point, left click, pull out, and draw that circle. And then I'm going to draw another circle around this area here and connect them with a line. From that circle, turning off my ortho, to that circle. Right-click, finish, indicating that this is a blown-up detail of that. Okay, so that you can take advantage of all of these draw tools, drawing extra lines, drawing circles, or just an arc, using the revision cloud to highlight an area where you want to show that there's a revision to the plans in this particular area. Take advantage of our boundary and Polygon Hatch tools and all of the additional details tools. The last one that I want to show you before I start taking your questions is this Masonry section. So I'm going to zoom in, and I want to show that I've got brick coming all the way up here. So I'm going to go to the Masonry section. I can tell it all about the height of the brick, the width of the brick itself, the joint height, the joint width, so I can type in all of those details. When I'm happy with them, I click OK, and then I tell it where I want it to start, left click, stop, left click, and it automatically puts in the brick either side. You know, it's moving with my cursor, so I left click to show what I wanted on that side. So now I quickly have the brickwork defined as well. Helps to highlight and add information to your sections. The information that I've added on top of the section with the hatching, with the extra lines that I drew, and the brick section, those are all added on top of the section. They're not attached to the section. So when I left click to select this section, you can see that they don't highlight. I've added them on top of, so they're not part of the section, but they're drawn in details around it. With our detail over here to the side, when I left click to select it, you can see it's the same thing. The detail is one block. The extra information I've added outside of that block just in case that block changes, it will retain this additional information. If I go in and choose to edit the definition of the block and add those extra details here, they become part of that block. The reason I like to add them outside of the block is that under our Insert tab here, we have the option to globally update Smart Views. If I globally update a Smart View, it looks back to my model to see what changes have been made, and then it applies them back to all the various views. It'll overwrite your blocks with the new block that it's creating from your model. So any work that I would have added inside those blocks is completely overwritten. The work that I've added outside the blocks and on top of it will retain and stay. So lots of tools that we covered today under our Tools options in the software and our Draw options in the software. You can add lines and hatching revision clouds. You can add text, and you can add dimensions and edit those dimensions as well. What I'd like to do now is open up our chat panel, part of that GoToMeeting console that you'll see on your screen. In there, you can type in questions that you might have about using the various Draw tools that I showed today. I'll read out all the questions, and we'll be able to answer them live. So let me go to our questions. And we already have one in there. So if you have any questions, make sure you type them, and I'll be able to get to your questions. What happens to added text and dimensions when Smart Views are updated? What about hatch patterns? So because I added this text after the fact, and because I added this hatch pattern after the fact, they will remain. So if I go back to my model, and looking at my model, I make a change. I'm just going to view it without the framing. If I, as an example, change the front door, I'm going to grab the front door. Oh, I must have selectability off. Grab our front door, and I'm going to replace it with just a single door. And that's 36 without the side lights. When I come back to my sheets, I want to reflect those changes in my model. I want it to reflect that that door is just a single door without side lights, and with my elevations as well. If I come up to globally update the Smart Views, it'll look back to my model, see the changes, and apply them. Because I added that revision cloud and all of that hatching as a separate entity on top of the elevation, they will be retained. You can see my hatch is still there. If I would have selected the elevation, however, and went over to my Properties dialog box on the right and edited the definition of that block, and in the definition of the block added the hatch and the revision clouds, it would have been totally wiped away. So that's why I stay outside of the block definition with things that I know I want to retain and not update. That's a great question, and I hope that illustrated it for you. Okay, and that seems to be our only question up there so far. So I'm going to hold the chat panel open, so it'll give you an opportunity to type in your questions if you do have some. And while we're waiting for questions, I'm going to take you to our website, www.cadsoft.com. And up here on our website, I want to remind you that under our Client Center area in the upper right, there's lots of different learning opportunities up here for you. If you haven't had the opportunity to register on our forum, make sure you do so. You can ask questions and get answers from clients all around the world that have been using the software for quite a long time and are a great resource. You can also go to our tutorials page. And under our tutorials page, there's lots of videos to watch and different documents to read so you can learn further about the software as well. Also on this page is where you registered for today's webinar. At the bottom of this screen is where you can view the webinar archive. We put these all up on our YouTube page and a hidden page, so they're just for you, so you can go right up to that link in the archive and view the video. Today's class takes about 24 to 48 hours to upload. It has to be formatted and then uploaded. So give us until about Thursday till you'll see today's class, but we have taped today's class for you as well. let's check and see if there's any additional questions. Oh, there's a couple more up there. So text and hatch and such is added to the worksheet, but not the drawing block, correct? Yes, that's absolutely right. So if I just work on, it's like I'm working on top of these elevations. I'm just scribbling over them with my hatch and my text. So if I update that elevation, it can replace itself underneath, but it's not drawing or erasing what I've taken and drawn on top of it. But again, if I do edit that block and add that hatching into the block, it will be erased when I do a global update of the Smart View. If the drawing is repositioned, the add-ons remain in their original position? Yes, they will. When I'm left-clicking to select this elevation and I'm moving it, all I'm moving it at this point is that elevation. I would have to hold down my Shift key and also select the hatch and the revision cloud to move them as well. You're not moving just the elevation if you don't select those as well. So make sure that when you select the elevation, if there's something else you want to move, if you've added in hatch, hold down the Shift key and select those two, so that when you do move the drawing, if I go up to modify and move, that I'm moving them all together. Okay, I'm just going to turn ortho on so they stay in line with my dimensions. Okay, so I'm just moving the elevation and the hatch at this point. The dimensions remained, and my revision cloud remained where it was. So they are individual entities. They're not tied to that elevation. So if you want to move one, you've got to move the others as well. Can you box around the entire elevation to select them all and then move? Yes. So if I came down here to the bottom on this section, if I hold down my left mouse button, see the dashed line that forms? That's a crossing window. Anything that crosses it or goes inside of it will be selected. So when I release my left mouse button, you can see that everything highlights green. It's all selected. And then I could go up to Modify and Move, and then left-click and move it to a new place. Okay? So hold down that left mouse button. Keeping it held down is our crossing window, and anything inside of it or that it crosses will be selected, and they can be all moved together. Okay, so everybody else is silent today. So if you do have a question, make sure you do post it up there. It's a great opportunity to see your question answered live. But if there are no further questions, I am going to end off the webinar, and I will follow up with a booklet so you can read about the various tools and drawing tools that are available in the software. And I'll just leave the chat panel open for one further minute just to make sure that everybody's questions are answered. And if you're typing one up now, I won't interrupt that typing. So one more minute for questions, and then we'll end off the webinar on using the draw items and the tool items in the software to further illustrate your working drawings. Oh, here's another question that's come up. After you deleted lines in the blow-up, an updated view would restore all? Yes. Yep, so if I zoom in here, I updated this global smart view. See how those lines went longer again? Because I went right into that detail and it created them again. If I didn't want that to happen, if I was happy with this detail and I didn't want it to restore it, the other opportunity that I have is if I left-click to select it and I come up here to modify, I can choose Explode. What Explode does is it removes its connection back to my model so it can't globally update again, and it explodes it into individual lines so they're no longer connected together. So as soon as I hit Explode, and it says your text and dimensions might need to be adjusted because now they're individual lines. So now when I pick on them, see how they're already individual lines? And if I went to Smart View Update, it no longer is a Smart View any longer. It's been exploded and it has detached itself from the model. So it would not update any further. Okay, that seems to be all of the questions that can it be unexploded? No. Now, once it's exploded, it is blown apart. The only way to get it back together again is to go back to the Insert Pulldown menu. Under the Insert Pulldown menu, you can define it as a block again. Then they'll be attached together, but they still will not be connected back to the model. Once you explode it, it loses that connection to the model, and it cannot be fixed again. But you can move them back together so they're all attached again by defining them as a block. Okay, I'm just scrolling through our questions just to make sure I've got everybody's questions answered. How can you determine which blocks are which? When you're coming up here to insert blocks, define a block, you give them a name. So I would give this one a name of footing detail. And then I know it's my footing detail. And I would select the objects that are part of the footing detail that I want it to have in that block. Hit enter, it recognizes them. I tell it my base point. When I want to insert it again, it's going to be from that corner. So now it's called footing detail. It knows I want to insert it the next time from that lower left-hand corner, and it knows it has 16 objects attached to it. So when I click OK, it's now a block. So if I went back up to insert blocks, insert a block, in there you would see my footing detail block. Okay, so they're all given a unique name that identifies what they are. Okay. One more minute for any further questions. The next question was unreferenced blocks were not named. An unreferenced block means that I inserted a block and I've exploded it, or it no longer exists in the file. So I might have inserted this footing detail and then deleted it out. So it knows it's no longer there, but it's still going to reference it. So if you needed to insert it again. But if you wanted to delete it, so it's out of the memory of this file, you could go up to Insert Blocks and say, I want to delete the unreferenced blocks, the blocks that no longer exist here. Just get rid of them. I know I'm not going to insert them again. So you would delete the unreferenced blocks. That's great. Okay, that seems to be all of our questions today. Great questions today, everyone. I hope you learned a little bit about all the various tools that are available in the working drawing environment. And again, if you have any questions, never hesitate to call our Technical Support Center or take advantage of that forum where you can post your questions and have them answered live. Thanks, everybody. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you again next Tuesday. Bye-bye.